right, so I did figure out how to go live on Instagram. Hopefully it stays on. We'll figure out Twitch on another day. So this is the CBCF, the Congressional Black Caucus Forum, Executive Order Tracker. This is mainly for the WanaUbuntu in the United States, but make no mistake, it affects us all, even those outside of the United States. So this is basically the Black Caucus put together a database of all the executive orders that are coming with the Trump administration, and to help us understand what's at stake for Black America, right? Help us understand how they're going to affect us. I'm going to just read through the website. You can access it. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Let me put it on Twitter so that it shows up everywhere. Let's see the title. There's the link. So you want to access it for yourself, you can go ahead and do that. Share it. Like I said, share it until you cannot share anymore. Share it more than you shared the Kendrick Lamar video and everything that came out of it. Share it so that everyone has it, because as much as we know existing in this burning house, which is the United States, is not our liberation, we need to also understand how to survive while we're still here. So this, I think, is a great, and it was shared by a friend. I'm grateful that they shared it. That was very helpful. And we need to understand that while we are in the enemy space, we need to know how to navigate safely and preserve ourselves. So this is what this will help you do. I'll just read through it. Hopefully it doesn't take long because there's a bunch of them. So I'll start. The introduction. During the first week of the, and please share the video as well for those who have little patience reading long documents. At least they'll have this video. This is why I'm doing the video, to listen to when you're walking, working out, whatever you're doing. At least you'll have something audio to listen to. Hold on. Yes. Okay, so introduction. During the first week of his second term in office, President Donald Trump made history by issuing an unprecedented 36 executive orders. Executive orders are official, legally binding mandates issued by the President of the United States and printed in the Federal Register that allow the President to direct federal agencies on how to interpret and carry out federal law without the need for congressional approval. The Trump administration has increasingly relied on other forms of presidential directives, including presidential actions, to implement policy changes. A presidential action, and I forgot to say, I do thank the Black Caucus for putting this together, Asanteni. A presidential action is a directive from the president used to call on the federal government to take action. Notably, the White House reclassified over 100 executive orders as presidential actions after their initial issuance. Presidential actions are not printed in the Federal Register and are therefore harder to track, making federal oversight and public review much more difficult. So that's right there shows you that that's a ninja movement that they did, Trump administration. And some people are advising him to do these things. So this is what they're doing. So they realize that the presidential orders have much more oversight, are going to be looked into, and they're easy to track. So what do? They change all of them, over 100 executive orders, to presidential actions, because presidential actions are not printed in the Federal Register and are therefore harder to track, and making federal oversight and public review much more difficult, and legal repercussions also much more review. If you want to take legal action against them, much harder to do. Together, these tools allow the administration to rapidly reshape policy and have far-reaching consequences, impacting communities and individuals across the nation. However, Congress still has mechanisms at its disposal, through legislation, oversight, and public pressure, to challenge or limit the impact of these executive actions. Additionally, courts can review them to determine their legality and constitutionality, to ensure a system of checks and balances remains in place. At the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, the CBCF, so it's foundation, not forum, Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. That is the members of Congress, Black members of Congress, who have a committee, a group where they look out for Black interests. At the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, we are closely monitoring a series of executive orders and presidential actions issued by the Trump administration that we believe will have profound implications for Black Americans. Let me slow down. I tend to read fast, sorry. These directives target critical areas such as economic opportunity, education, criminal justice, health equity, and civil rights protections. We have selected these executive actions because they pose serious threats to the progress and well-being of Black communities, risk exacerbating systemic inequities, and could undermine hard-won gains. Our executive order tracker provides detailed information on each executive action's legal status and in-depth analysis of their impact on Black communities, and highlights responses from Congressional Black Caucus, CBC, members, including statements on the threats these directives pose and actions that maintain crucial checks and balances on presidential power. Click on the Impact on Black Communities section under each executive order to view a brief synopsis of its impact and relevant CBCF research. I will be reading those areas for you, so if you don't want to click, you don't have to. I'll read them today. New in May, the tracker also features legal and policy updates where applicable, helping users stay informed about ongoing developments. Stay informed and engaged as we monitor these pivotal executive actions and their consequences for Black Americans. How to use the tracker. Use the checkboxes to filter executive actions by topic or government agency. Click Reset to clear all selections or check all to view every order we are tracking. Entries are listed with the most recent executive action at the top. Click on an executive action's name to access the fact sheet, which includes policy changes, agencies responsible for enforcement, a detailed analysis of the impact on Black Americans, and select responses from Congressional Black Caucus members. That you will have to do yourself. So that's why I gave both the link and I'm doing this. I'll just do the overview. You'll have to click for the extra information. So click on an executive action's name on each of them so that you can have access to much more information. So that you'll have to do for yourself because we don't have the time. There's so many of them. I was reading them the other day on the train as I was heading to work that I can't do that for every one of them and expect to be here for an hour. Like that would take too long and I need to go about my affairs for the day, all right? So I'll just cover the overview, but please go to the link. The link is there. I just went through the broadcast on the cloud, fiefdom. We have access to the cloud. Get online and access them and find out more information about these executive actions. Legal and policy updates are linked in the status section. So that's where you'll be able to see whether it's an active one, it's pending legal action, it is not active, it is one that they've proposed, but it hasn't been activated. All that information will be there. I'll tell you that, but the details of what stage they are in will be once you click each one of them. Maybe I'll do one just to give you an idea of what it is. I'll do one, just one. The tracker is updated weekly. I'll do the first one. So this means the Black Caucus is putting in work. They have people who are hired to do this for us. They're putting in some funding towards this. And for that, we do need to appreciate them for that, despite all the flaws that they may have. So I selected all the federal agencies. I selected everything, all the issue areas, so that we can have all the actions and I can read through all of them. For those of you who will be looking at it, they show you the different icons that represent whether it's overturned. There's like a circle and a cross, a diagonal cross on the circle. Well, it's not in effect. There's a pause icon. It's pending legal challenges. There's an upload icon. You know, the circle that has the ... when you're uploading something. In effect, there's a play icon, play button icon, and then upheld, there's a the magistrate's, what's the hammer called? The thing that the magistrate slams, whatever it's called, you know what I'm talking about, that the judge, I forget what it's called, But that shows that it has been upheld by the Supreme Court. So not only is it active, it's been upheld by the Supreme Court and is in effect. The first one, and I think I'll see which one is most affecting Black people, or at least from my perspective, because that's the only perspective I'm using right now. And I'm sure if we had other perspectives, the conclusion as to which one affects most of us would be different conclusions. So this will be my perspective on which one I think I'll get deeper into it. I'll click into it and we can get more information. So the first one, lowering drug prices by once again putting Americans first. It was issued on April 15th, 2025. The issue area is health. Summary, this executive order directs the Secretary of Health and the Judges Gavel, Asante Sana Anthony McPhail, Judges Gavel. This executive order directs the Secretary of Health and Human Services to evaluate several Medicare and Food and Drug Administration processes to lower drug prices for American consumers, including the continuation of the Medicare Drug Price Negotiation Program. It is in effect. It is in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. What impact does it have on Black Americans? By extending the Medicare Drug Prices Negotiation Program, this executive order will continue to reduce costs for the 5.8 million Black Medicare beneficiaries. However, some provisions in the order conflict with other White House policies and may be difficult to implement. Furthermore, they could jeopardize community health centers that provide critical care to Black communities. And so you can click on that one and get much more information than what I just gave. And they have like a link there, relevant CBCF research op-ed. There's an op-ed, CMS Innovation Models by Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. There's links to click and get much more information for those of you who will have the time to do. So the second executive action. Reinvigorating America's beautiful clean coal industry and amending Executive Order 14241. It was issued on April 8th, 2025. This deals with environmental justice. This executive order mandates a sweeping government-wide initiative to re-establish coal as a strategic cornerstone of U.S. energy policy, prioritizing expedited permitting, expanded federal support, and the dismantling of regulatory barriers to coal development through a time-bound agency-specific framework overseen by the National Energy Dominance Council. The order mobilizes federal departments to accelerate coal project approvals, roll back anti-coal policies, and integrate coal into the nation's energy, manufacturing, and technological future. This presidential action is in effect. The status is it's in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending against it. The impact on Black Americans. The order could deepen environmental and economic inequities for Black communities by promoting coal development, potentially worsening pollution and increasing health risks while offering limited job benefits without targeted inclusion efforts. It also undermines the Biden administration's just energy transition policies designed to include and uplift marginalized communities in the shift towards sustainable energy. The third one, protecting American energy from state overreach. This was issued on April 8th, 2025. Environmental justice and energy are the areas this affects. This executive order centralizes control over energy regulation at the federal level, directing the Attorney General to aggressively challenge state and local climate laws, particularly those related to carbon emissions, environmental justice, and lawsuit against energy companies on constitutional and legal grounds. Framed as essential to national security and economic growth, the order positions state climate actions as threats to federal authority, energy affordability, and interstate commerce, while promoting traditional energy sources under the banner of American energy dominance. What does that mean? That means this is now me giving analysis. I said I was just going to read, but that means that if you're an activist working for climate change, so those are state positions, state climate actions as threats. to authority, to federal authority. So any state that takes action, climate action against this, that will be a threat to federal authority. Do you see how much that's taking away the state power? And how much it's by default taking away our power to hold them accountable legally. So this action is in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. How does this impact Black Americans? The order poses serious risks for Black communities who are disproportionately located near polluting industries and have long relied on state-level climate and environmental justice laws to address environmental racism, promote public health, and create economic opportunities through green infrastructure and workforce development. By overriding local control and prioritizing traditional energy interests, the order reinforces structural inequalities and denies these communities the chance to shape a more equitable and sustainable future. So I'm wondering, like, if you start a permaculture business, is that part of the actions that are going to be going against the federal government, right? Which is against national security, which the charge against that is terrorism. So this is very vague, but again, click on it and find out more. Another one, extending the TikTok enforcement delay. This was issued on April 4th, 2025. National security and technology are the areas this touches on. This executive order delays the enforcement of the TikTok ban by another 75 days, extending the deadline to June 19th. This move aims to provide additional time for ByteDance, BYTE Dance, to negotiate a sale of TikTok's US operations to American investors, despite legal concerns over the president's authority to override the bipartisan law mandating divestiture. This action is in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. What impact does it have on the Black Americans? Oh goodness, hold on 1 minute. Sorry about that, everyone. Oh goodness. Sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. All right, sorry about that. So we're talking about the extension of the TikTok enforcement delay, and I was at reading the impact on Black Americans. The delay in the TikTok ban offers Black communities, especially creators, entrepreneurs, and educators, continued access to a vital platform for economic opportunity, cultural expression, and community building. However, uncertainty remains as many worry about the long-term loss of income and visibility if the White House ultimately enforces the ban. So a lot of our people are on this platform because it allows them to do a lot of things that the Western platforms don't allow them to do. And this is part of the conversation we just had on our broadcast today about cloud fiefs. Who owns the cloud and what do? They control it, they control access. And this is part of that. So if TikTok is banned, given what I saw, I don't think the US has the power to ban TikTok. They might decide to pull some arrogant move and do it, but they're going to pay highly for it. So we'll see what happens. But China is okay with being banned on some platforms to make sure they have control of their cloud. We saw that. They'll be licking their wounds and moving on. They're not going to accept any patches of their platforms. And if they do, they'll detach themselves from it. So I honestly don't know what the US is thinking when they think that this is something that they can do. But hey, let them learn from experience. And the other... Okay. Another presidential action, regulating imports with a reciprocal tariff to rectify trade practices that contribute to large and persistent annual United States goods trade deficits. It was issued on April 2nd, 2025. It touches on the areas it touches on: tariffs, trade, economic opportunity, global affairs. This executive order declares a national emergency to reduce the US trade deficit by imposing reciprocal tariffs on countries with higher barriers to US goods, addressing non-tariff trade practices, and revitalizing domestic manufacturing in critical sectors like defense, technology, and agriculture. In critical sectors like defense, technology, and agriculture. It will be enforced by the US Customs and Border Protection and coordinated by key federal agencies, with provisions for tariff adjustments, product exclusions, and congressional reporting to ensure national security and economic stability. Like, they're attaching national security to everything. And attaching national security allows them, I'm going to pick up this phone, allows them to charge terrorism. That's one of the things that they can charge under threat to national security. So, which is BS, but this is the wide reach that these people have. Reciprocal tariffs paused on April 9th, 2025 for 90 days. The status of this, it's in effect, but it has legal challenges pending. What impact does it have on Black Americans? While tariffs may encourage domestic manufacturing and potentially revive job opportunities in sectors where Black workers have historically been represented, they also risk increasing costs for Black-owned businesses, disrupting supply chains, limiting export potential, and raising consumer prices, disproportionately impacting low-income Black communities and workers in retail, logistics, and transportation. I know a lot of us who had started or have started, are starting businesses where we were looking to reach out to China, the continent, for resources, for things to sell, for the raw product that's going to make the final product of whatever it is that we're selling. And now if the legal action against it does not go through, it's already in effect. By the way, it's in effect, despite the fact that the legal action is going on, it's still in effect. So it's in effect until that legal action wins against it, but it's going to still be in effect. So you won't be able to do that easily, or there'll be high prices, high costs attached to it for you to do that, or you'll get complications while doing it because of it. So it's going to be harder to run your business, and you might decide, because of the expense, the cost of doing it, that it's not even worth doing it, which means some businesses will be closing. Some people who had found an outlet, a way to make some income outside of the 9 to 5, will be ditching that and going back to 9 to 5s. That's the impact. action, making the District of Columbia safe and beautiful. This is where the government is, DC, Washington, DC, for those of you who don't realize what the District of Columbia is. Making it safe and beautiful. This was issued on March 28th, 2025. The issue area is criminal justice and immigration. Imagine that. Immigration has something to do with making DC beautiful. Summary of the executive order. This executive order establishes a federal task force and a plan to make DC safe and beautiful by increasing the federal law enforcement presence, increasing access to concealed carry permits, increasing access to concealed carry permits. People can carry guns, concealing them. That's okay. Deporting undocumented immigrants and removing all homeless or vagrant encampments on federal land. This is in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. The impact to Black Americans. This executive order will disproportionately impact Black communities in Washington, D.C., a city that is over 40% Black, including a large number of Black immigrants. The order authorizes the new task force to dispatch federal immigration officials to identify undocumented immigrants in the district. The order will not only stoke fear in Black communities with undocumented immigrants, but given recent incidences where the Trump administration has unlawfully detained legal immigrants, may also have implications for legal permanent residents and international students enrolled in DC's colleges and universities. Howard University. The order makes guns more accessible and less visible, exacerbating DC's gun violence crisis that has ravaged Black communities. The order will also displace thousands of unhoused people in DC. By disbanding encampments on federal land, this order will leave thousands of Black people stranded without a place to legally sleep. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of homeless people in DC. So those of you who've been there by Chinatown, you've seen. Yeah. Another executive order. Exclusions from federal labor management relations programs. This was issued on March 27, 2025. It impacts the area of economic opportunity. This executive order prohibits federal workers across more than 20 agencies from collective bargaining, no unionizing, including the Departments of Health and Human Services, Agriculture, and Energy. The order also instructs the affected department and agency heads to terminate collective bargaining agreements with their employees and terminate agency participation in any pending legal proceedings that pertain to unfair labor practices or grievances brought forward by unionized employees. So if you were unionized before, I wonder if this affects, you know what? I wonder if this affects police unions. I wonder. This is paused. The state it's paused pending legal challenges. So this has been paused. You see what the difference there is? They're the ones that are active but have legal challenges, but this one has been paused while legal action continues, right? So that's a good thing. That's what we would want to see on all of them, pause until legally it's decided, but you have some that still continue while legal action is taking place. What impact does this have on Black Americans? This executive order will significantly impact Black communities as Black people are overrepresented in the federal workforce. Yes, I was in the federal workforce and I'll tell you, but they are in the lower GS levels, the grade levels, grade salary levels. So, but they are the largest percentage of workers in the federal government are Black people. This order will prohibit thousands of Black workers from negotiating for fair wages and other labor protections. I just recently won an action against them. I would not have been able to do that if this was in effect. So this is not good. So any racist action that your employer, the federal government takes against you, any of those challenges that you could go to EEO, you might have trouble doing that, is how I'm seeing this play out. So I don't know. Another executive order, restoring truth and sanity to American history. This was issued on March 27th, 2025. It touches the areas of civil rights and LGBTQ issues. This executive order outlines President Trump's intention to revoke funding from Smithsonian museums that divide Americans based on race, including the National Museum of African American History and Culture, or acknowledge transgender identity, including the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum. The order also directs the Secretary of the Interior to reinstate and restore the names of monuments on federal property that have been taken down since 2020, and to ensure that all descriptions and depictions of public monuments do not inappropriately disparage Americans past or living. It is in effect, the status is it is in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. None. Now, I don't know if the lawyers who are putting up the legal challenges are so swamped that they can't put attention to some of these and they're just prioritizing one step at a time, or they're in agreement with the government that this one should go into effect. I don't think that would be the case. Maybe it's just too overwhelming, the number of orders, and that might have been done intentionally, that they can fight at a time. And so they're starting with the priority, or what they consider the priorities. This executive order jeopardizes the congressional funding that the NMAA, the Museum of African American History, National Museum of African American History, uses for personnel and upkeep. This could be catastrophic for the longevity of the museum and the preservation of Black history. The order also demands that the Secretary of the Interior reinstate Confederate statues that have been removed from federal property over the last 5 years. These monuments do not just uplift the public figures that waged war against the United States and attempted to secede from the country, but they also serve as symbolic reminders of anti-Black discrimination. Another executive order is preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. Preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. It was issued on March 25th, 2025. Voting rights, civil rights, immigration are the areas this touches on. This executive order mandates proof of US citizenship for voter registration and requires that all mail-in ballots be received by election day. The order also directs federal agencies to assist states in verifying voter eligibility and threatens to withhold federal funding from states that do not comply with these new regulations. The status is that it is paused pending legal challenges. That is a good thing. What impact does this have on Black Americans? This order will make voting more difficult for the most vulnerable populations, including those Black Americans who do not have a passport and Black women who changed their last name and can no longer use their birth certificate or social security card to verify their citizenship. The order also disqualifies mail-in battles. By the way, in that area, you hear that they're not looking at your divorce decree, which is one of the ways that you can show that the name change is legit. You have to show your birth certificate or social security card to verify your citizenship. The order also disqualifies mail-in ballots that arrive after election day, which could force college students, rural voters, and elderly and disabled voters to vote in person and face long lines. Another executive order, improving education outcomes by empowering parents, states, and communities. These people are hilarious. If it wasn't affecting us so negatively, I would be laughing. Improving is what they're calling this, education outcomes, by empowering parents, states, and communities. It was issued on March 20th, 2025. It touches on the area of education. This executive order initiates the dismantling of the Department of Education and aims to give educational authority back to the states. Additionally, the order threatens the funding of educational institutions that continue to engage in any activities related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, or seen as promoting gender ideology. So, an institute, an education institution will choose to either if they have money, use their own money to support what they're doing, and therefore continue standing by LGBTQ rights and standing by Black people and civil rights and having diversity, equity, and inclusion. Or if they're desperately reliant on federal money, they'll have to succumb to this order and not have DEI programs and not stand up for LGBTQ rights and all that. So as you protest against your university not standing up for LGBTQ rights, it is not them, but the government that is holding them hostage by saying they cannot have funding. So if they're a university that is dependent on federal funding, there really isn't much they can do, is what I'm saying. The status of this is it's in effect. It's one of those that are in effect legal challenges pending. It is active. What impact does this have on Black Americans? Dismantling the Department of Education threatens to reverse decades of progress in educational equity, disproportionately affecting Black students and other marginalized communities. The absence of federal oversight could lead to increased discrimination and reduced access to essential educational resources. We are halfway. We're halfway. I'm looking forward to the end. Another one, immediate measures to increase American mineral production. Immediate measures to increase American mineral production. It was issued on March 20th, 2025. This affects the areas of environmental justice and energy. This executive order aims to bolster domestic mining like uranium, copper, potash, gold, and any other element, compound, or material determined by the National Energy Dominance Council, NEDC, and the processing of critical minerals essential for national security, technology, and infrastructure. It directs federal agencies to expedite permitting process for high priority mineral projects. This is in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending against it. How does it impact Black people? This order could provide Black-owned businesses with better access to funding and government contracts, while also spurring infrastructure investments and job creation in mining and related industries. However, fast-tracking mineral production may weaken environmental protections, leading to pollution and displacement in Black communities. Without explicit equity measures, the economic benefits of mineral expansion may bypass historically marginalized groups. Another one, removing discrimination and discriminatory equity ideology from the Foreign Service. This was issued on March 19th, 2025. The issue it touches on is immigration and civil rights. This presidential action mandates the removal of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility DEIA core precept from the Foreign Service's tenure and promotion criteria, which means federal government employment, all of them will not be able to do DEIA. It's in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. You see something like this, there should be legal challenges pending, but I wonder if whoever is taking on these orders is just being strategic as to what areas they can and cannot start at the moment. This action is consistent with a broader agenda aimed at dismantling DEIA initiatives, within the federal government. The action will likely result in fewer institutional protections for Black Foreign Service work officers. So we're talking about State Department. So this action will likely result in fewer institutional protections for them, all the diplomats and that. Additionally, removing DEIA as a core precept in tenure and promotion criteria will limit the employment and career advance opportunities for Black employees. So in a place, some of these federal organizations or departments have 99% white leadership. And the only way that the employees there have been in the past able to fight that is by taking action against them. They won't be able to do that. Through DEIA is how they were able to confront those issues, but they won't be able to do that moving forward, or as long as this is in effect. All right, continuing the reduction of the federal bureaucracy. That's another one. Continuing the reduction of the federal bureaucracy. Did I finish this one? Yeah, I did. This went into effect. It was issued on March 14th, 2025. It touches on the areas of economic opportunity, education, global affairs, and housing. This presidential action significantly reduces the functionality and personnel of 7 government agencies, including the Minority Business Development Agency, MBDA, and the Institute for Museums and Libraries Services. This is in effect, but there are legal challenges pending against it. What impact does this have on Black Americans? This action guts 7 government entities that provide Black communities with everything from access to educational materials to economic empowerment. Here are 2 examples of its policy implications for Black Americans. The MBDA helped business owners from socially or economically disadvantaged backgrounds secure nearly $4 billion in contracts in 2023. By eliminating crucial personnel and denying the MBDA's funding requests, the Trump administration is putting thousands of Black businesses in jeopardy. The U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness conducts strategic work to address homelessness across the United States, which disproportionately impacts Black communities. This action would significantly cut their funding and suspend the projects that are serving the unhoused population, which is more than 40% Black. Another executive order. Additional rescissions of harmful executive orders and actions. This was issued on March 14th, 2025, and it touches on the areas of economic opportunity, environmental justice, health, LGBTQ issues, and energy. This presidential action overturns 6 executive orders, 5 presidential memorandums, 5 presidential determinations, and 2 national security memorandums implemented by former President Joe Biden. The rescinded executive orders cover a variety of topics, including workers' rights, future pandemic preparedness, and clean energy. The status of this order is it's in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. How does it affect Black Americans? This action rescinds 18 executive actions that provide Black communities with everything from climate resilience to apprenticeship programs. Here are 2 examples of its policy implications for Black Americans. President Trump repealed an executive order that helped provide a pathway for people without a college degree to attain government jobs through paid apprenticeships. By rescinding this order, President Trump is restricting opportunities for Americans who have not attended college to work in the federal government, which includes nearly 2/3 of Black adults. President Trump also overturned a presidential determination that ordered the Secretary of Energy to manufacture sustainable energy products domestically. By rescinding these executive actions, the Trump administration is signaling that they will not use federal resources to address climate change, which disproportionately impacts communities of color. Another order. Restoring public service loan forgiveness. Restoring public service loan forgiveness. This was issued on March 7th, 2025. It touches on the areas of education and economic opportunity. Give me a minute. This presidential action amends the eligibility criteria for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, the PSLF, to exclude organizations that engage in improper or illegal activity, like organizations that engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion work, help undocumented immigrants, and provide gender-affirming care for trans kids. This is not in effect. It has a big pause on it. What impact will it have on Black Americans if it goes in effect? Black students are both more likely to take out loans and leave college with more debt than their white peers. The long-term effects of student loan debt contribute to the racial wealth gap and can create negative economic and psychological outcomes for Black Americans. Another executive order, protecting Second Amendment rights. This was issued on February 7th, 2025. It touches on the areas of health, civil rights, criminal justice. This presidential action, an action opposed to an order, and you saw with that an action is harder to track because it's not going to be registered in the federal registry, so it's going to be harder to track. This presidential action mandates a thorough review of government regulations and policies that may have infringed upon Second Amendment rights, requiring the Attorney General to present a plan of action within 30 days. This action seeks to eliminate restrictions on law-abiding citizens' right to keep and bear arms while ensuring government actions comply with constitutional protections. It's reclassified as presidential action. It was reclassified from presidential order to presidential action on March 8th, 2025. It is currently in effect and pending legal challenges. There's a link there to see more. I'm not going to click on that. Clearly, there's more to see, probably where these legal challenges are at the moment, what status they are in. What impact does this have on Black Americans? The impact of this action on Black communities depends on how revised gun policies affect firearm access, self-defense, and public safety. While removing regulatory barriers may ease access for Black gun owners, changes could also alter. I'm sorry, y'all. Changes could also alter law enforcement strategies and community safety. The unequal application of the Second Amendment raises concerns about Black gun owners' protection. Historical and modern cases highlight a double standard where Black gun owners face deadly consequences without support from gun rights groups. Racial biases continue to shape attitudes and policies, hindering Black Americans' ability to fully exercise their rights. Another executive order, expanding educational freedom and opportunity for families. Expanding educational freedom and opportunities for families. This was issued on January 29th, 2025. It touches on the area of education. This presidential action expands school choice programs by encouraging states to use federal funds to support K-12 educational choice initiatives, reclassified as presidential action on March 8th, 2025. This is in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. What impact does this one have on Black Americans? While school choice holds the promise of improving educational outcomes for Black students, it also carries significant risks. Without policies in place to ensure equity, adequate funding, and diversity, school choice could further entrench educational disparities rather than elevate them. Another executive, we'll see whether it's an action. This is an action. Ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling. They're calling it radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling. Listen to the language too that they're using, y'all, so you can keep an eye on it. It was issued on January 29th, 2025. I am glad to hear that we're getting closer to January 20th. January 29th, 2025, it affects the area of education. This presidential action prohibits the teaching of specific ideologies deemed divisive or politically motivated. The action argues that public school curricula should avoid promoting concepts such as systemic racism and gender ideology. Reclassified as presidential action on March 8th, 2025. This is currently in effect and there are no legal challenges pending. What impact does it have on Black Americans? This action restricts discussions on systemic racism and related concepts, which would limit comprehensive Black history education. Long-term implications of this action include reproducing implicit biases for generations and limiting capacities to create an equal and just society that addresses systemic racism. Another This is an action as well, presidential action. Restoring America's fighting force. Restoring America's fighting force. This was issued on January 27th, and it touches on civil rights. This presidential action abolishes all diversity, equity, and inclusion offices. Oh my goodness, excuse me. And initiatives within the Department of Defense and US Coast Guard banning race and sex-based preferences in hiring, training, and military education. It also mandates internal reviews and reporting deadlines to ensure compliance with a merit-based, race-neutral military structure, while prohibiting the teaching of divisive and DEI-related concepts. It was reclassified as presidential action on March 8, 2025. It is currently in effect with legal challenges pending. What impact does it have on Black Americans? This action's removal of DEI programs in the military could impact Black service members' representation, career advancement, and institutional support. Without these initiatives, recruitment diversity may decline, leadership disparities may persist, and workplace discrimination concerns may lack proper channels. Military academies will no longer address systemic racism or bias, potentially affecting education on race-related leadership topics. As the military has historically provided economic mobility for Black Americans, reduced opportunities could impact broader economic stability. Another presidential action, ending illegal discrimination and restoring merit-based opportunity. This was issued on January 21st, 2025. It touches on the areas of economic opportunity, civil rights. This presidential action eliminates diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI policies and programs in all executive departments and agencies and for all federal contractors. This action also demands that companies in the private sector terminate their DEI efforts. And here's this. So there's this one, and then there's the other one, because you had something similar I read before. And I'm guessing that is a strategy on their part so that they can have many. Because this one is facing legal challenges, but the other one isn't. So you see that sneaker-do way they're doing things. So this one might be defeated. And I wonder for the judges who are going to be making decisions on these, if they're going to make their legal decisions, that if the decision made on this will affect any other order that is similar to this one. That's what they should do. Otherwise, you spend all the money fighting this one, but there's another one very similar to this one that I sorry about that. Yeah, that's my connection. Sorry about that. So I'm not sure where I was. I'm going to say I was talking about the DEI executive order and the fact that there's another one that looks just like it that doesn't have legal action pending on it. This one is in effect, but has legal action pending on it. But I wonder, and I hope that the judges will, when making their decisions, will say, for example, if they say that this one cannot go into effect, this one and any other order that resembles it in any way cannot go into effect, so that it takes care of the others that don't have legal action. I hope that's how the judges will be making their decisions. Otherwise, they'll fight this one and have to go fight another DEI one similar to this one, because there's another order similar to this one. There are multiple duplicates that occurred. I mean, you tell me if you're seeing it too, I'm seeing it. What impact does this have on Black Americans? This action has led to attacks on Black history and funding cuts for Black businesses. Federal agencies like the State Department have archived and deactivated DEI web pages and resources and canceled Black History Month celebrations. Sorry, I was making sure our Twitter was back up. Sorry. think we're back. I hope we are back up. I don't know. It's looking like we are not. I think we are back up. Okay. Federal agencies like the State Department have archived or deactivated DEI web pages and resources and canceled Black History Month celebrations. Target, a high-profile company in the private sector, ended its Racial Equity Action and Change (REACH) initiative, under which it pledged to invest over $2 billion with Black-owned businesses by the end of 2025. So that's not happening with Target. This helps you understand why this is happening out here, right? Because we're seeing it through Target, but we don't know what's happening on the background. What does it say? What does this law say? Let's see what it says that made Target. The presidential action eliminates diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and programs in all executive departments and agencies and for all federal contractors. The action also demands that companies in the private sector terminate their DEI efforts. So Target might just have racist people who are looking for an excuse to stop their DEI efforts. They just might. I was going to say something regarding this. So this means that we content providers who are creators who are doing this work online must increase our efforts to represent Black history, because it's not going to be covered in the schools, it's not going to be covered in the workplaces. And I'll tell you, as someone who worked in the federal government, those DEI actions, as much as they weren't achieving the true liberation that needs to be achieved, they were releasing the valve for the pressure that we were on. So if like there was when George Floyd happened, that was Trump was the president at that time, or it was the exchange of presidencies. But when Trump was in office the first time, he also took away DEI, and I was in the government at the time. And spaces where we were before. So what happened during the George Floyd, because I think at that time we still had them, is we were all able to gather because we were all stressed out and depressed. So we had what we called uncomfortable conversations. And we Black employees after work had sessions online where we were reaching out to each other, just giving each other comfort because we were all stressing and we couldn't voice the thoughts we had in the office. And so through the DEI, the groups we had formed, we were able to, I was a part of leadership in a couple of them, we were able to provide that support for our fellow Black employees that they otherwise would not get from the office because DEI is banned. Because they can't speak up in the white spaces. So with DEI banned, they can't even do that because it's against policies and they can lose their jobs. So there's no support. If there's a shooting, if there's something happening with the Black community, you're consumed by it, you don't want to go to work, you have to go to work. You don't have that release of the valve, the pressure valve that those DEI movements and groups were giving you before. And it's I'm telling you right now, as someone who was in those spaces, it's very, very stressful when you don't have that. Very stressful to work in those spaces. And a lot of our people who are very, very African grounded are in those spaces because they need to make a living. And because they had loopholes that could get them hiring without college education and get them a decent pay. All right. This is an action, protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. Protecting, for those Black people who want to keep walking around talking, this is the one I think, and I'll go all the way to the end and we'll see whether another one goes above it as far as priority. Or takes more priority over this one. But this is the one I think I'll click into so that we can have more information. Because I just want to, for those of you who want to call yourself American, I want to get you the information from them that you're not American. We'll see what they say is American. So protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. This was issued on January 20th, 2025. It affects immigration and civil rights. This presidential action ends birthright citizenship for those born to undocumented. The good thing about us reading these and the fact that the Black Caucus put this together is that this is no longer a rumor. You're no longer uncertain. Is this AI? Is it a rumor? What's going on? Is Trump really doing this? Yes, this is happening. So now this is proof that it wasn't a rumor, that they're actually ending. Because someone had asked me before and I couldn't give a definite answer because I wasn't sure whether it was a rumor. Here is the definite answer. This presidential action ends birthright citizenship for those born to undocumented immigrants and those born to people here lawfully on a work, tourist, or student visa. The action also prohibits federal departments and agencies from issuing and acknowledging documents purporting citizenship for those born to undocumented immigrants and those on student, work, or tourist visas, reclassified as presidential action on March 9, 2025. What does that first sentence mean? This presidential action ends birthright citizenship for those born to undocumented immigrants. It means if you were born, even if it's 20 years, 10 years, I don't know what the time is going to be. I'm guessing they'll have a wide reach. No matter when it happened, if you were born here to an undocumented immigrant, you were born to people who were here lawfully on a work, tourist, or student visa, and that's how you got your citizenship, gone. It's ending. Gone. Like even if you've had it for gone, it's gone. And it will, moving forward, prohibit federal departments and agencies from issuing that type of citizenship and acknowledging documents purporting citizenship for those born to undocumented immigrants and those on student, work, or tourist visas. So you can no longer travel to the US and give birth so that your child has citizenship. No. And if that's how your child got citizenship, that citizenship will be gone. And I know a lot of people who are under that category. Luckily for now, this is not in effect due to legal challenges. This is not in effect currently due to legal challenges. And like I said, this is the one I'm going to click on. I think it is the one I'm going to click on. We'll see whether there's one that takes more precedent to it. Impact on that has more priority, or that is more, I think, is more important, or more, it has more impact on us. This action has sparked fear and uncertainty among Black migrant communities, especially those from the Caribbean and Africa, who already encounter systemic obstacles in immigration and legal systems. Over time, the action would establish a hereditary caste system, preventing descendants of Black immigrants from gaining citizenship and reinforcing cycles of disenfranchisement. Telling y'all. The other one, restoring freedom, another one, restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. You know, if this was applying to all of us, I'd be very happy about this one. But clearly this is going to apply to the white man and not to the Black man or woman, for those of you who want to be recognized as if. Anyway, restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. It was issued on January 20th, 2025. This touches on civil rights, mental health, and technology. Civil rights, mental health, and technology. Me reading this is because this is important for our existence. That mental health part, for us surviving while we try and figure out how we're gonna get out of this space, get out physically or get out whichever way, right? Out of this just insanity of existence. Mental health. Let's see how. This presidential action rolls back previous commitments and attempts at managing hate speech, misinformation, and disinformation on online platforms. This presidential action rolls back previous commitments and attempts at managing hate speech, misinformation, and disinformation on online platforms. So the one way this might be good if it touches on us is that I'll be able to come here and say anything I want. And Facebook will not be able to stop me from, and YouTube will not be able to stop me from saying kill. If, it's in effect and there are no legal challenges pending. So I wonder what hate speech is going to be protected, whether they're going to be specific about that. And I encourage you all, I won't do this on this broadcast, but I encourage you all to click on this one to get more information. I'll be doing so myself because I am a content provider and I want to know what I'll be able to get away with, whether I'm considered in this, because I know what America is and who, from the previous one, we'll find out who is an American and who's protected, who can freely produce hate speech, misinformation, and disinformation on these platforms and not face any repercussions from these platforms. It was reclassified as a presidential action on March 8th, 2025. It's in effect and there are no legal challenges pending. How does this impact Black Americans? The banning of content moderation policies impacts Black communities in several ways, including negative public health outcomes and decreased political engagement. So which means for us, we won't be able to say what we want to say, but I don't know. We'll click on it and find out more. Another executive presidential action, defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. Defending women from gender ideology extremism. You all know what this is touching on. I'm not going to say it, but you all know. And restoring biological truth to the federal government. XXXY chromosomes is all I have to say. Hold on 1 minute. So this was issued on January 20th, 2025. It touches on the areas of civil rights, health, LGBTQ issues. This presidential action establishes policy protections that define sex-based rights in accordance with biological distinctions. The action asserts that policies allowing gender identity to override biological sex pose risks to women's privacy, safety, and fairness in areas such as sports, education, and public accommodations. Reclassified as presidential action on March 8th, 2025. I have a lot to say on this, but because of the nuances of this conversation, I'm going to plead the fifth because y'all do not have the mental wherewith to be open to this being a conversation that can be had because y'all have become such a sensitive community, sensitive people that you cannot have conversations. So I will preserve my thoughts on this one. But I have plenty of thoughts on this one. It's in effect with legal challenges pending. What impact does this have on Black Americans? And just to give you an idea, in the school where I am teaching or where I am helping students, I'm in the student's bathroom helping a student, and I hear another student who sounds male to me, but is presenting as female. And my immediate thought as a parent is if my child is in that space, that child who's male presenting as female might be an innocent child. But we also know that we are in a state of perversion where some children, these are high school children, so they're starting to have adult practices, where some might claim to be female presenting so that they can have access to female bathrooms. Take it where you can. That's all I'm going to say. So this action will disproportionately impact Black transgender and non-binary people who already face higher rates of homelessness, unequal access to resources, and mental health issues. I wish we were in a place where we could have this conversation openly without being judged or deplatformed or criticized or villainized. We're not. And therefore, we cannot have this conversation in a healthy way that we need to. Restoring the death penalty and protecting public safety is another one. Restoring. And when you think of a movie like Just Mercy and the work that Bryan Stevenson and his organization do, look up Bryan Stevenson, Bryan Stevenson, Stevenson. Look up Just Mercy, the book, the film. Watch the film. I need to watch the film. I haven't watched the film. Actually, that tells me now that I need to watch the film ASAP. The book was very hard for me to finish. I got to one chapter. I haven't picked up the book since, because there's a 13-year-old who is imprisoned, but we have 13-year-olds in the United States who are sentenced to death, and they're innocent, right? They're innocent. Whether they're innocent or not, they're children. This particular, and this is a spoiler for those of you who haven't watched Just Mercy. I haven't watched it, so I don't know if they cover this part of the book accurately in the movie. This particular part of the book is on a 13-year-old. I'll say it quickly so that you can understand how risky restoring the death penalty is, and protecting public safety, what they call public safety, when we know very well the public is at risk by the government, and in the government's arms. If they wanted public safety, we can start by reducing police. The over excessive power tripping nature of police in the United States would be a great place that they can start to protect public safety. I digress. In the book, the 13-year-old is the son of a single mother, and the mother starts dating a boyfriend. And the boyfriend is violent to the mother. This is a young boy, 13-year-old black boy. And so one night, he and his mother are playing a board game at home. The guy hasn't come by. He's a drunk also, no surprise there. And they're enjoying their evening, mother and son playing a game. And as fate would have it, the guy shows up. And he starts beating the mother. He's drunk. And he hits her so hard, she falls back, hits her head on the back of a table, in the corner of a table, starts bleeding, is laying there, seeming dead. So to this young man, looking at his mother laying on the floor, helpless, not moving, with blood all over the place, his mother is dead. The drunk boyfriend has gone to the bedroom and fallen asleep on the bed, like just passed out like nothing happened. And so the young man is calling emergency, not getting any help, is in a panic state like any of us would be, including these criminals. And he goes to the bedroom where the man is sleeping, and he remembers that he puts his gun in a drawer by the bedside, and he gets the gun and shoots the guy. He's protecting his mother, or he's avenging his mother, which I would do in a heartbeat. I would do the same thing this child did in a heartbeat. I would. Like, put yourself in his shoes. You would. And so he is arrested, charged with murder. He's taken to the precinct. And on that night that he is in the precinct, while he's waiting for his defense to be reached, his grandma calls Bryan Stevenson. Bryan Stevenson is just starting, low budget, too many cases. He's like, yo, I can't take any other case. His grandma is pleading, so Bryan decides to go. But the night before Bryan goes, the young man is sexually abused by older men in the prison. Like, I put the book down. I couldn't pick it up because it's detailed how it happened. And then Bryan comes and he's sitting next to him, and the young man, because of the trauma, is not opening up until Bryan gets close to him and opens up and tells him what happened. This is what our children are facing. And this is saying that this will come back, because this is part of it, right? If you're under death penalty, you're going to be taken to that space. It was issued on January 20th, 2025. It touches on the area of criminal justice. This is another important one that I should click on and open up, and maybe I will. We'll see how much time before I get to the bottom of these ones, but definitely the other one as well. This presidential action directs the Attorney General to resume federal executions and encourage state attorneys general. And I'm looking at the status as I read this, and this presidential action directs the Attorney General to resume federal executions and encourage state attorneys general and district attorneys to bring state capital charges for all capital crimes. The action also outlines the Trump administration's intention to overturn the Supreme Court precedents that limit the use of capital punishment. It's reclassified as presidential action on March 9th. It was reclassified as presidential action on March 9th, 2025. It is in effect, and there are no legal charges pending against it. So the death penalty is back on for all capital crimes. I'm going to see how much is left on the bottom. Bear with me. All right, so not that many left. How is this going to impact Black Americans? I gave you an example before. This action puts Black Americans at greater risk of facing fatal consequences at the hands of the justice system. The National Registry of Exonerations reported in 2017 that innocent Black people are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder than innocent white people. Another executive action, realigning the United States Refugee Admissions Program. It was issued on January 20th, 2025. This touches on immigration. This presidential action suspends the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program and halts all pending refugee cases in the program indefinitely. The action also lays the groundwork for states to decide whether or not to accept refugees. So the United States is going to go into other countries, create the conditions for refugees to exist, and then refuse to have a place where they can be as the cause. And you all want to justify having bases in your countries and want to justify inviting US in your countries. Like, if there was ever a reason for Africa to say the United States, you're not invited in our nation ever again, this is it. How you cannot be mad when realizing what these things are, I don't know. You're the one that's crazy if you're not mad. You who's looking at me get angry and being like, Nduku, just calm down. Don't be. Check yourself mentally, because you should be mad. Thankfully, this is currently not in effect due to legal challenges. Thankfully. Because this is insane. You're the one out there causing chaos in Congo, causing chaos in Sudan, causing chaos wherever people are moving out of to come to the United States. And because you're the one, they have every fucking right to come to the United States to get a life. And in fact, they shouldn't pay taxes. It should be a free ride in the United States, free college, free every fucking thing. Because you have caused the dysfunction in their nation. So if you wanna, I'm all for US standing by itself, but get out of every other place you are in. Stay in your lane, and then you can have these laws. The nerve. I'm sorry. How does this impact Black Americans? This action will erase a path to legal citizenship in the United States for the global Black community. No shit, Sherlock. As 1 in 5 Black Americans were immigrants or the children of immigrants in 2019, this action could have catastrophic consequences for Black communities and is even more dangerous in conjunction with the Trump administration's other immigration policies. If you don't understand, for the Black people who voted for Trump and who still support him with your short-sighted, fucking selfish selves, these are the consequences of your ridiculousness. And yes, I'm judging you all the way. And yes, I want nothing to do with you. Another executive action, reforming the federal hiring process and restoring merit to government service. Reforming the federal hiring process and restoring merit to government service. Remember, I told you who's the biggest employer of Black people? The federal government. This went into effect January 20th, 2025. It touches on civil rights. This presidential action establishes a federal hiring plan to implement by all federal agencies, departments, and commissions that overturns diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it doesn't matter how many white boys we hire, we can hire a gazillion white boys. And we'll have every right as a federal agencies. The FBI, the CIA can look at white pasty cell, like it doesn't matter. There'll be no grounds to hold. They can hire as many white people as they want. They don't have to hire any Black person. Yet they will be saying that their, what was it called? Their mission is to protect the American people. Uphold the Constitution and protect the American people. I think that's how it goes. So this presidential action establishes a federal hiring plan to be implemented by all federal agencies, departments, and commissions that overturns diversity, equity, and inclusion. So don't even advise your child in the next 4 years if your child is going to the work or is going to school. Don't even take anything that where you need to. No more you can go to this place to work because they will be discriminated against and it is okay to do so. Recruitment efforts in the federal government and requires federal workers in non-partisan departments to faithfully serve the executive branch. So you cannot be against Trump. If you're against Trump, you'll not be hired. If you've done anything against Trump online, you will not be hired. It was reclassified as presidential action on March 8th, 2025. Prove me wrong. Let me know if you applied for a federal job recently, you've been completely anti-Trump and you were hired. This is in effect, and there are no legal challenges pending. What impact does it have on Black Americans? This action marks the first time in 60 years, where there are no intentional efforts to address racism in the federal government, which will have a significant impact on Black Americans. When we tell you it's time to get out physically, and you think that, oh, I have no place to go, this is the only place I know, we built America. I hope he can no longer, like, I hope he's held by the Constitution and he has to get out in 4 years. I hope that can happen. I hope so, because at least in 4 years, this can all be reversed. But if not, and if a Republican wins and continues these, upholds these, what does that mean for the Black community in America? Ask yourself those questions. Declaring a national energy emergency is another one. It was issued on January 20th, 2025. It touches on environmental justice, transportation. This presidential action declares a national energy emergency and mandates that federal agencies use all available emergency authorities to rapidly expand domestic energy production and infrastructure. It also requires expedited environmental reviews and regular reporting to ensure that energy projects are implemented swiftly to safeguard national economic and security interests. I'm reading fast because, we've been here for how long? 1 hour 24, including the broadcast we just did. It was reclassified as a presidential action on March 9th, 2025. It's not in effect, it's pending legal challenges. What impact does it have on Black Americans? The Trump administration's presidential actions on energy could lower energy costs and create jobs, potentially benefiting low-income Black communities. However, because this is what a lot of Black people who voted for him were looking at. However, hold up, back up, expedited permitting processes and reduced environmental reviews risk increased pollution and health disparities, as Black communities are often near hazardous sites. The focus on fossil fuels without investing in renewable energy undermines progress toward a clean energy economy and environmental justice, leaving Black communities without access to green jobs or sustainable solutions. The rollback of environmental protections further deepens inequality and exposes these communities to greater health risks. So what? You get a job. Now your community has increased asthma, increased cancer cases. You're dying. You don't even have 5 years of that job because you get cancer. You're dead. So what? You get a job. Another presidential action, ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. Like, how many times are these people gonna hit DEI? Like, we got it. You're against DEI. It's like backstop. Full armor against DEI. Ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. It was issued on January 20th, 2025. It touches on civil rights. This presidential action mandates that all federal agencies, departments, and commission heads eliminate all environmental justice and diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility positions and offices by March 20th, 2025. The status is paused, legal challenges pending. But you see how, and this is now explained to them. This went into effect January 20th, the day the president was inaugurated. I remember this being one of the first ones. It was paused then, pending legal challenges. But we've seen several others that came after that are active. So it has, and a lot has happened since that we've seen in the federal government with people losing jobs, because they put out other presidential actions that ensured this continued despite this one being paused and facing legal challenges. The impact on Black Americans. This action has not only eliminated federal jobs for Black workers, but has also stopped the recruitment efforts that have created a diverse federal workforce. And I'll tell you now, I went to look at the jobs that were available. There was a hiring freeze. There's a hiring freeze in the federal government, at least when I looked. Another presidential action, withdrawing the United States from the World Health Organization. This was issued on January 20th. It touches on health. This presidential action withdraws the United States from the World Health Organization, revoking prior commitments and halting all financial support and personnel involvement. It also mandates the identification of alternative global health partners and requires the revision of U.S. health security policies. It was reclassified as presidential action on March 9th, 2025. It is in effect with no legal challenges pending. How does this affect Black Americans? The U.S. withdrawal from the WHO could disproportionately, and by the way, it says Black Americans, but is any Black person in America is going to be affected by these. The U.S. withdrawal from the WHO could disproportionately impact Black communities by limiting access to global health resources, disease surveillance, and public health initiatives that address racial health disparities. The WHO plays a vital role in shaping maternal and infant health guidelines. Just in case you thought the WHO was only working on international issues, virus spreading and all that. No, there's domestic reach of the WHO. And if the US is not a part of it, let's see. The WHO plays a vital role in shaping maternal and infant health guidelines, combating infectious diseases, and coordinating vaccine development, areas where Black communities already face systemic inequities. Without the WHO's support, gaps in research, reduced disease tracking, and weakened public health infrastructure could worsen health outcomes. Right? When you think that you're American and nothing touches you, this is what happens. Another presidential action, putting America first in international environmental agreements. Okay. So I just got alert that they're having a problem. Oh, you know what? That is interesting. They're having a problem with Twitter. That's hilarious. I'm not even going to bother. So whoever's closed down that broadcast there, Elon and his grandma and his grandpa, to hell with them. So yeah, the Twitter is not up live, like I said. Putting America first in international, let me hurry up before the YouTube one goes down, because we have these recorded in other spaces, so we'll be able to have it. Putting America first in international environmental agreements. It was issued on January 20th, 2025. It touches on the area of environmental justice, This presidential action removes the United States from the Paris Agreement and all related international climate commitments, cutting off financial support for global climate initiatives. It also directs federal agencies to revoke policies supporting international climate finance while prioritizing economic efficiency in future energy agreements. It was reclassified as presidential action on March 8, 2025. It is not in effect pending legal challenges. What impact does it have on Black Americans or Black people in America? Weakening environmental regulations and withdrawing from global climate commitments could exacerbate pollution, public health disparities, and climate-related disasters, disproportionately affecting Black communities already vulnerable to air pollution, water contamination, and extreme weather events. While prioritizing fossil fuel industries may create jobs, it threatens clean energy investments where Black workers have been gaining economic opportunities. The rollback of environmental justice initiatives further undermines protections against environmental racism, leaving frontline communities with fewer resources to address worsening climate conditions. Another executive order, Unleashing American Energy. It was issued on January 20th, 2025. It touches on environmental justice and transportation. This executive order accelerates fossil fuel production by rolling back environmental regulations, eliminating clean energy mandates, and prioritizing oil, gas, and natural resources development on federal lands and waters. It also dismantles environmental justice initiatives and reduces federal support for renewable energy, shifting national policy toward fossil fuel dominance. It is currently not in effect, pending legal charges. The rollback of environmental justice protections and clean energy, how it affects Black Americans, Black people in America. The rollback of environmental justice protections and clean energy initiatives further exacerbates systemic inequities, prioritizing fossil fuel industries over frontline communities. Limiting renewable energy growth also restricts economic opportunities for Black workers. Without policies that balance energy security with environmental justice, these communities risk bearing the greatest burden of pollution, climate disasters, and long-term economic consequences. So that's it for the list. This was last updated on the 2nd of May, this list. So it's pretty recent. 2nd of May, it was last updated. I'm going to go back to the two that I said I would get into because they tell you can click the title and you get more information. And I'll read what we have. The one was who is considered an American, and the other one was the death penalty coming back. And hopefully we can do that in 15 minutes and be done. And hopefully I keep my eyesight while scrolling up. You know, the other thing is I could just find, and we're looking for American, who's an American? That will have many results. Definition. Let's see, American. Okay. Protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. That's the one. We're going to click on it. Allow use only necessary cookies. They have a video too. I don't know what the video is of. Let me see. No, it's you can like click and go across. It's a PDF, I guess we'll call it. Okay, I guess I should be reading that PDF. There's a lot. So you can read that. I'll just read the PDF. Yeah, okay. So what does the executive order do? It was issued on January 20th. It's executive order number, it's titled, let's start there. It's titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. Executive order number 14160. That's 14160. It was issued on January 20th. And the topic it covers is civil rights and immigration. What does this executive order do? This order ends birthright citizenship in the 14th Amendment for A, those whose mother was unlawfully present in the United States and the father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth. And B, those whose mother's presence in the United States at the time of said person's birth was lawful but temporary and the father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth. This includes those born to both undocumented immigrants and those in the country on tourist, work, or student visas. Hi, child. Trying to make this bigger. Okay. The order prohibits federal departments or agencies from issuing documents recognizing U.S. citizenship or accepting documents issued by state, local, or other governmental authorities that recognize citizenship of the persons named above. How will this executive order be enforced? This order applies to those born in the United States 30 days after this order was issued. The order authorizes the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Commissioner of Social Security to take all appropriate measures to ensure the regulations and policies of their departments and agencies are consistent with this order. Federal agency and department heads must issue public explanations of their plans to implement their order within their agencies and departments within 30 days of the date this order was issued. So the Attorney General, I believe the Department of oh my God, why am I forgetting the department? But under that department is all the law enforcement agencies. And therefore, this would give them a right to act on this. So you'll get people breaking, you'll get the ICE, the FBI, whoever breaking down your doors to get you if you're violating this. So how does this impact Black communities? Birthright citizenship, ratified in 1868, is a protection that was born out of the aftermath of the Civil War to ensure that formerly enslaved Black Americans were granted civil rights. Immediately, this order has sown fear and uncertainty in Black migrant communities, particularly those from the Caribbean and Africa, who already face systemic barriers within the immigration and legal systems. Denying citizenship to US-born children would lead to reduced access to resources in education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. Over the last 5 years, Salisbury, Maryland, has experienced a significant increase in its Haitian population, partly due to political unrest in Haiti. This community has been integral to the local economy, with many employed in poultry processing plants and contributing to various local businesses. By the way, those poultry processing jobs are hard. However, from what has been told to me. However, heightened fears of immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, raids, remember I told you, Attorney General, which means ICE falls under there, have led to noticeable changes in community behavior. Many immigrants are choosing to stay home, resulting in decreased patronage of local businesses. So it's gonna affect the local community. America is so short-sighted. This decline in customer turnout has raised concerns among business owners about the sustainability of their enterprises. In the long term, this order would set the foundation for a hereditary caste system in which children and descendants of Black immigrants would never become citizens, perpetuating cycles of disenfranchisement. How are CBC members responding? The Congressional Black Caucus. 8 members of the Congressional Black Caucus, CBC, have spoken out against this order, citing it as unconstitutional, reaffirming America's identity as a nation of immigrants, and rearticulating a commitment to fighting for the rights of all Americans. CBC Chair Representative Yvette D. Clarke, along with other tri-caucus chairs, released a joint statement. There's a highlight on that statement. You can click it and read it. Select statements from individual CBC members are featured below. Representative Yvette D. Clarke, Chair of the CBC. I was born in Flatbush, Brooklyn, 60 years ago to 2 Jamaican immigrants. My citizenship is my birthright. If Donald Trump wants to tell me, my family, my neighbors in Brooklyn and across New York and around the United States that our citizenship is illegitimate and we are not proper Americans, then he should expect to hear from the tens of millions of Americans he just disgraced. We are witnessing a shameless abuse of power, and I can say with certainty the immigrant community will not stand by as it progresses further. We will not yield to Mr. Trump's impropriety, illegality, and cruelty. The full statement, there's a link there that's available to Representative Yvette D. Clarke's full statement. Representative Sydney Kamlaga, I hope I'm not butchering that, of Kamlaja Dove, CBC Whip, co-chair of the Global Migration Caucus. No matter how hard he tries, Donald Trump cannot erase the fundamental truth that the United States is a nation of immigrants. He may push his anti-immigrant agenda, but he cannot diminish the diverse cultures and identities woven into the tapestry of our country. There's a full statement link for you to get the full statement. So I'm going to go back to the other executive order. So the other one was death sentence. That's interesting. What were they titling it? Penalty. All right, yeah. Restoring the death penalty and protecting public safety. So we click on that and we get the same PDF with more information. We're not accepting all cookies. No, we're not. Hell no, we're not. The title of this order, it's an executive order, is Restoring the Death Penalty and Protecting Public Safety. It's Executive Order number 14164. It was issued on January 20th, 2025. The topic is criminal justice. What does this executive order do? This order directs the Attorney General to resume federal executions and outlines the Trump administration's stance in favor of the death penalty. It also instructs the Attorney General to motivate state attorneys general and district attorneys to bring state capital charges for all capital crimes. The order establishes the federal government's interest in pursuing the death penalty for undocumented immigrants accused of violent crimes and anyone accused of murdering law enforcement officers. I'll read that one more time because it does affect our community heavily. The order establishes the federal government's interest. So if this order goes into effect, I think it is in effect, the young man in Newark, the 13-year-old young man in Newark who recently killed a cop is facing the death penalty automatically. The order establishes the federal government's interest in pursuing the death penalty for undocumented immigrants accused of violent crimes. What's a violent crime? And anyone accused of murdering law enforcement officers. Why the hell come to the US anymore? Just stay home. Stay home and struggle at home. Like, don't even come to the US anymore, my people. Seriously, just stay home. In his last month in office, former President Biden commuted the sentence of 37 death row inmates who are now serving life sentences with no opportunity for parole. In this order, President Trump directs the Attorney General to take all lawful and appropriate action to ensure that these offenders are imprisoned in conditions consistent with the monstrosity of their crimes and the threats they pose. The order also instructs the Attorney General to determine if those prisoners are eligible for death row on the state level and advise the legal authorities in that jurisdiction. So no longer will it just be federal authority that they have. They'll be able to go to the state and say, yo, this person needs to get the death penalty. You need to do it. And then we know whatever action they'll be using, like you're not going to get state funding, however they're going to approach it, where the state is like, okay, you know. In the order, President Trump expresses explicit intent to overrule Supreme Court precedents that limit the authority of state and federal, and I think killing a cop is a federal crime. So already that becomes their mandate, their area of authority. In the order, President Trump expresses explicit intent to overrule Supreme Court precedents that limit the authority of state and federal governments to impose capital punishment, and asks the Attorney General to prosecute cases in consideration of this directive. How will this executive order be enforced? This order rescinds former President Biden's moratorium on federal executions and instructs the Attorney General to pursue the death penalty for all crimes of a severity demanding its use. Now you need to go and do the research to find out what crimes those are. The order compels the Attorney General to influence state-level legal proceedings in order to increase the number of death penalty convictions. The order compels, that word, compels the Attorney General to influence state-level legal proceedings in order to increase the number of death penalty convictions. I don't want to hear any Republican talking about the federal government has overreach on state rights. It's a fucking overreach. What the hell do you have now to justify your electing this fool? Yo, just be quiet. In the order, the Attorney General is instructed to encourage state attorneys, federal government overreach, I should say. In the order, the Attorney General is instructed to encourage state attorneys general and district attorneys to bring state capital charges for all capital crimes. The order also implores the Attorney General to ensure that states with capital punishment have a sufficient supply of drugs needed to carry out lethal injection. Additionally, the order states that federal law enforcement should coordinate with state and local law enforcement where possible. However, it also asserts the authority of the Attorney General to seek federal jurisdictions. That's what I just said. The young man in Newark, that's going to be a federal case, especially because the FBI was involved in that case. Yep. However, it also asserts the authority of the Attorney General to seek federal jurisdiction over these cases to facilitate the objectives outlined in the order. That's great overreach. The order specifically references capital crimes committed by undocumented immigrants. Like that, the fact that undocumented immigrants are involved here, and then we don't even know what these criminal actions are that they are going to fall under, and murder charges where the victims are law enforcement officials as relevant to federal interests. This order will be enforced by the Attorney General, but the order also modifies the Justice Manual, which provides general guidance to U.S. attorneys and Justice Department employees who prosecute federal crimes. How does this impact Black communities? The Trump administration's efforts to increase the use of the death penalty could have catastrophic implications for Black death row inmates, as the death penalty has a disproportionate impact on Black communities. Black people comprise roughly 13% of the United States population, but over 50% of the death row population. The US criminal justice system is also flawed, and innocent Black people have faced death sentences due to racial bias. Since 1973, over 200 people have been exonerated from death row, and the National Registry of Exonerations reported in 2017 that innocent Black people are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder than innocent white people. For those of you who get lost when we talk about percentages and numbers, the fact that there are 13% of Black people in the US population, but juxtapose that to the population of death row Black people, it's 50%, over 50%. In a nation where the majority are white people, and we know that white people commit crimes, even if they're not committing them at the extent where Black people are, their numbers should increase their numbers in those prisons. in that death row population. There's no way Black people should be 50% of that population. No way, given their percentage in the US. How else does it impact Black communities? The race of the victim also affects whether the defendant faces capital punishment. The race, of the victim also affects whether the defendant faces capital punishment. A study from Harvard Law School found that those convicted of killing white people are sentenced to death row at 17 times the rate of those convicted of killing Black people. In 2024, Marcellus Williams, a Black man convicted of murdering a white woman, was put to death by the state of Missouri, 2024, last year, even though there was no DNA evidence linking him to the crime, and the victim's husband advocated against his execution. The victim's husband said, don't execute. The person whose wife was killed. With the federal government and nearly 30 states empowered to pursue the death penalty because of this executive order, Black Americans are at greater risk of facing fatal consequences at the hands of the justice system. Get out, y'all. Get out. If you can, get out. How are CBC members responding? The Congressional Black Caucus, CBC, has demonstrated a commitment to addressing issues of racial equity in the criminal legal system and has spoken out against capital punishment on several occasions. Most recently, in December of 2024, the CBC issued the following statement. There's a link there for you to open. It's a hyperlink, the word statement, to read more about this, to read the statement. In response to former President Biden commuting the sentences of 37 death row prisoners. I'm betting that death row prisoners hyperlink is the list of prisoners. The Congressional Black Caucus has for decades advocated for reforms of our criminal justice system to ensure equal treatment of all people under the law. Today, we join countless others in the civil and human rights space who, like the CBC, have for years advocated against the use of capital punishment at the federal level, in applauding the Biden-Harris administration for this historic use of the president's clemency powers. The death penalty in America is a fundamentally flawed and error-prone tool that has historically been disproportionately used against Black people and other people of color. The CBC thanks President Biden for his continued leadership and commitment to addressing systemic racism within the criminal justice system and for working to see a moral example for our nation. To read more about the CBC's legacy on criminal justice issues, visit AVOICE, AVOICE. It's a hyperlink or virtual library. That's it, my people. That's it for today. Be careful out there. It's crazy out there. Be safe. Share this with every single Black person within the United States and without, but most importantly within the United States, because they need to know how to move moving forward. This should be the thing that young Black man who's ready to shoot a cop remembers and is like, maybe I shouldn't. Okay? There's a I think if you injure any federal employee, you do it's a federal offense. So move accordingly, my people. Move accordingly. Move wisely. Inform, be informed. Now that you have been informed, go and inform. It is your duty to take what you learned today, to share this video, to share the link that I gave you to other Black people. Let's do this. Share it to 5 Black people. We always talk about share this thing with 10 people. This thing will be the thing that share with 5 people today. Share this with 5 people today. I shared it with 12. There were some people on Twitter. There were some people on Instagram that got shut down too. We're still going on YouTube. So 12 people on YouTube, I shared it with them, and the many others who are going to be coming across this, and I'll share it with others. So go ahead and share this. Let this, we need to inform our people. If someone is facing homelessness and they're in DC, they have to leave. Like if they're already homeless and they're in DC, they need to leave. This is what, and thank God this is happening now when it's warm, because they can leave and find another place. If you can help them in leaving, at least help. Because let's not be consumed by the fear and the panic. Let's strategize and figure out strategic ways to respond to these threats, because they are threats on our population. I wish you all well. Asanteni. Kwaherini.